Good morning. The court is going to call the matter of Richards v. Richards. It's a child custody action. Good morning, counsel. Good morning. I see that we have some interpreters with us today. Will the interpreters who are going to be assisting in this matter please stand so that I may administer the oath? We have 2 interpreters, is that correct?
We have 3, Your Honor.
3 interpreters, so we'll do the oath 3 times then. Will the first interpreter please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully interpret from American Sign Language into English and from English into Sign Language the proceedings before this court in an accurate manner to the best of your skill and knowledge?
I do.
Okay. Will the second interpreter please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully interpret from American Sign Language into English and from English into American Sign Language the proceedings before this court in an accurate manner to the best of your skill and knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. And will the third interpreter please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully interpret from American Sign Language into English and from English into American Sign Language the proceedings before this court in an accurate manner to the best of your skill and knowledge?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right. Will the attorneys please enter their appearances for the record, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Alice Smith, and I am here on behalf of Ms. Barbara Richards.
Good morning, Ms. Smith. And opposing counsel?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Amy Brown, and I am here for Mr. Richards.
Great. Thank you. All right. Ms. Smith, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, I would call Ms. Barbara Richards. Your Honor, Ms. Richards is deaf, and we have 3 interpreters helping us today: Jennifer Storr, Trenton Marsh, and Posh McCombs.
Great. Ms. Richards, if you'll just come to the stand, please. Please be seated and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth? Thank you. All right, are the interpreters all okay? Can everybody see okay?
We can, Your Honor.
If there are any problems, just let me know.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Judge?
Yes, please do.
Please state your full name for the record. And where do you reside? And what is the exact address? Are you deaf?
Yes.
How long have you been deaf? Since when? Can you understand me and the questions I'm asking you through the interpreters? What is your age? And how old is your husband? Is your husband deaf also? As to the marriage, were there any children of this marriage? And what is the name and age of that child? And does she reside in the home? Is Sarah deaf? And at the present time, do both you and your husband still reside in the home? Okay, now, can you tell the court about your educational background, please? Absolutely. If you'll tell the court, please, where you went to school and how much schooling you've had. And did you have a major at Gallaudet? And is that specifically for the deaf? And did you major in elementary education there? Now, when were you married? And where did you get married? You filed an application with this court for custody of your child, is that correct? And if the court were to grant you custody of your child, where would you like to live with your daughter? And if possible, would you like to live in the same home that you're living in now? And can you describe to the court the house that you currently live in? Are there any rooms besides bedrooms? And is Sarah happy? Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
Is Sarah happy living in that home? And if you'll describe for the court the neighborhood that you live in. Are you also happy living there? And are you employed at the present time? How are you employed? And what time do you leave for work in the morning? How many days a week do you go to work? And what time do you generally leave that work to come home? Now, how do you coordinate that with Sarah leaving and going to her school?
And the interpreter asked for clarification.
How do you coordinate your schedule
In the
with
morning,
Sarah's schedule?
In the morning and afternoon?
In the morning and the
Thank
evening.
you.
And if the court were to grant you custody, how would you handle that situation if you and Sarah were to live where you are now? And this neighbor is a friend of yours? And she takes care of Sarah for that half an hour or so that she would be home alone at the end of the day? At the present time, the neighbor does not come in the morning, is that correct? Do you have any flexibility in your teaching time in the event that Sarah were to become ill or you would have to be home with her for any particular reason? Would they then get a substitute teacher to cover your class? Now, who prepares the meals in your home? And how many meals a day does Sarah have at home?
May the interpreter ask for clarification?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Now, what does Sarah have for breakfast? And does she serve herself then? And how about dinner? And what time do you generally have dinner? And does your husband come home for dinner? And do the three of you have dinner together, a family meal? And what kind of dinners do you generally serve at your home? Does Sarah like that? Now, who shops for the food? And where do you usually shop? Does your husband ever shop for the dinner table? Can you describe Sarah's table manners? On weekends, does she ever eat out for any of her meals? And can you describe Sarah's cleanliness, her personal habits? How do you know that she showers 2, 3, 4 times a week? And can you describe her bedroom for the court, please? Are you pretty comfortable with the way that she keeps her bedroom? How about your husband? Is he comfortable with the way Sarah keeps her bedroom? So he's never complained to you about that situation? Ms. Richards, I would direct your attention to the child's medical situation. Does Sarah have a pediatrician, a doctor? And where is that office located? Is that in the Golden Medical Building, that area? And who takes Sarah to the doctor when she has to go? So do you know the doctor personally? And how do you communicate with, how does Sarah communicate with the doctor? And would you just give the court a rough guess of how many times you've been to that doctor's office with Sarah over the years? Has your husband ever been to the doctor's office? Does Sarah have any special medical problems? Does she have any problem with her eyes? Is there anything particularly serious about that that can't be cured, or is that something you're working on? How about dental? Does she go regularly for dental checkups? And who takes her to those? Does she have any prescriptions that she takes on a regular basis? And if she needed those, say, antibiotics, who would give those to her? And how do you order these prescriptions? And can you explain a little more about that service to the judge, please? What is VRS? Have you taught Sarah how to use this in case of emergency? Okay. Now, in the past several years, has Sarah ever had to stay home for several days at a time? No, has she been ill? And has it been required that she needs to be home? And if so, who would stay home with her?
Your Honor, I believe that the previous interpretation was inaccurate, so I'd
Okay.
like to reinterpret that question.
Please do.
Thank you.
And did that cause any problem with your employment? Who purchases Sarah's clothes? And where would you buy those? And if I were to ask you Sarah's precise sizes, what she actually is wearing today, would you be able to tell that to the court? Now, if I were to ask your husband at this moment the same question, would he know the size of Sarah's clothing?
Your Honor, I object. That's highly speculative.
Overruled. Ms. Richards, you may answer that question.
And is that because he doesn't do the shopping for her? Now, as to other household chores, who does the laundry, the mending, the sewing? But as to Sarah, would that Sarah's clothes or things? Thank you. Now, let's talk about her education. What school does Sarah attend at the present time? And what kind of school is that? And what grade is she in? Have you been to the school? Often? Is Sarah having any particular problems outside or whatever a normal situation might be? How's she doing grade-wise? Does she like her school? Does she like her classmates? And does she like her teachers? Does she generally have homework? Are her teachers, if I can back up a minute, are her teachers fluent in sign language? And if we can move on then to homework, does she have homework and who works with her when she's doing that homework?
Objection, Your Honor. Please direct the witness to respond to the question.
All right, Ms. Richards, if you could just respond to the question that was asked of you. Thank you, ma'am.
Do you or your husband ever read to her? What about museums, theaters, children's plays, anything like that? And were those plays interpreted for her? How about television? What is your husband's position regarding television? Has Sarah had any religious training? And do you and your husband agree on Sarah's religious training? Does Sarah have birthday parties? Who's the organizer for those birthday parties? Can you describe for the court the last birthday party that you organized? How about your health? Are you healthy? And what do you know about your husband's health? Do you have any particular talents of your own?
Can you maybe rephrase that question?
I know you you earned your degree and you work with children. Would you consider those special talents to work with children? Now, if I were to ask you to describe in some detail a typical weekday, one day of the week with you, your husband, and your child, from the moment that person gets up in the household until the end of the day when the last person goes to sleep, would you be able to do that for the court? And the same for the weekend. If I were to ask you a typical day on a Saturday or a Sunday, what that typical schedule is, would you be able to do that? Now, Ms. Richards, there was an allegation made by your husband that you have a serious drinking problem. Are you aware of that allegation? Would you tell the court about that situation? At this point, have you stopped altogether? Does Sarah love her father? And how would you describe her relationship with her father? Can you please tell the court what kind of relationship you have with her? Do you believe that Sarah would be better off in your custody than in the custody of your husband? And please tell the judge why. And if you were awarded custody, would you encourage the relationship between Sarah and her father? Your Honor, I have no further questions of this witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Norman. Ms. Brown, do you have cross-examination?
I do. Good morning, Ms. Richards. Ms. Richards, you say you're employed as a teacher, is that correct? And you have pretty rigid hours? You leave pretty early in the morning, is that correct? You leave before Sarah gets to school? Okay, just to be exact, you leave about 45 minutes before she goes to school, is that correct? Okay, and in bad weather, you're not around to take her to school, are you? But your husband is around and able to do that, is that correct? His hours are flexible, is that right? So he can adjust his hours to Sarah's schedule, whatever she needs, is that correct? Okay, and if Sarah's sick while you're at school, have you told us that you can just take off from work at any time and that's okay? And this doesn't affect your job security? Now, switching gears, you've testified that you had a drinking problem, is that correct? And it affected your home life, is that correct? Now, was Sarah aware of your drinking problem?
Objection, Your Honor. There's been no showing of a problem.
Will the interpreter please strike the word problem? And then, Ms. Richards, you may please answer the question.
The interpreter requests that you re-ask the question.
Sure. Was Sarah aware of your drinking problem?
And this takes
Oh,
us
I'm
back
sorry.
to the original issue. If you could just rephrase your
Sure.
question.
I'm sorry about that.
That's fine, go right ahead.
Was Sarah aware of your drinking concerns or your drinking patterns or habits? Well, isn't it true that Sarah had a birthday party once at which you started drinking and became intoxicated, and you called all the children's parents to pick them up from the birthday party? Is that correct? You don't? Okay, is it true that you've had problems controlling your emotions when you've been drinking? Okay, and you would like the court to believe that all of a sudden, a year ago, you just stopped drinking. Okay, I have no further questions at this time.
All right. Ms. Smith, do you have any additional witnesses?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. I would call Dr. Marshall as the next witness.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richards, you may step down. Thank you, ma'am. The court will next call Dr. Marshall, is that correct?